So, by the time this video is out, we've almost gone a day now, of course, with the resignation. And I don't want to talk about the resignation itself because I did that very much this morning on today's the Good Morning Walk. Like I say, go check that out. We do that every Saturday morning. Sometimes we have a Wednesday Good Morning Walk as well. So watch out for those as well. Like I say, you can watch those by clicking the subscribe button and the bell button. If you are already subscribed, it does let you know when we do go live. It will send you a notification. So remember to do that. But the important question now, I think, what comes next? What comes next for Boris Johnson? And I think what happens in the wake of this, because that can be just as important. So I think there's really two questions. What's next for Boris? And what are the consequences of this? So first of all, we'll talk about Boris. Now, I said this ages ago, that the most likely thing for Boris Johnson is he'll become a shock jock. He'll become a potentially, I think it's not beyond the realms of possibility. I think he becomes a YouTuber. I think there is a millionaire, the Barclay brothers, whatever, will just give him a ton of money and just say, there you go. There's your talking points. Just go at it. And like I say, it doesn't matter that he's not technical. He can pay someone else to do it. And that could very well be the vehicle that Boris Johnson decides to take, because that would suit Boris Johnson down to the ground. Are you kidding? A weekly, hourly show, maybe a daily show where he does maybe during the day, he does 30 or so minutes covering sort of the day's news, etc., whatever. And then he does an hour or so. Just imagine sort of the super chats and stuff that he will be collecting on that, on top of the potential ad revenue from YouTube as well. Remember, Boris Johnson's still a big name. And people like me, I'd watch it, not for the actual because I support Johnson, but I'm more interested in just to see the insight that you would have potentially in the Tory party, especially, as I've said before, we are coming up to a very, very big civil war. And ultimately, Boris Johnson is going to play a big part of that. He's going to play a very, very big part of that. So having to see what he says and keeping an eye on, or at least be updated on what he is saying, for people like me who sort of do this, it's going to be important for us to sort of keep an eye on him every so often, just peek over the garden wall to see what he's up to. But I still think it's not beyond the realms of possibility he becomes a YouTuber, or again, as I said this morning on the Good Morning Walk, joins LBC, becomes a radio host. I know someone else said in response, "Oh, Ian Dale would absolutely savage him potentially for that," because obviously Ian Dale, big conservative, not a fan of Boris Johnson. So that there is always that, but of course, there is the option that shall we say, the two will never meet. Ultimately, I'm sure that the producers, or at least the big wigs at LBC, will ensure that never happens. But again, I do think it's more likely he either starts his own podcast or he becomes a YouTuber. Like I am really set that is probably what he's going to do. Someone will give him money. It will suit him right down to the ground. And as I've said before, Boris Johnson loves to take revenge. He is consistently takes revenge. You give him, you put him in front of a microphone, he will go at it. He will absolutely go at it. I say he's not tied down to the party anymore. He can say what he wants. He can openly criticize not only Rishi Sunak, but anyone he wants. And I know, and I think I use the phrase, he'd be like some sort of, old god sitting atop of Mount Olympus, just hurling thunderbolts at the Conservative Party. You should have never have gotten rid of me. And then, of course, what will happen? Eventually, he will use that vehicle to return to frontline politics. I don't think we've heard the last of, the honourable member for wherever, MP, Boris Johnson. I still think that is very likely in the future that we will see some return of Boris Johnson to frontline politics. But I think for now, he will absolutely be coming at politics from a completely different angle. And I think that will be the media. Ultimately, I can see him definitely returning to the Telegraph and then paying him to do his Telegraph column. Like I say, that was always sort of, very popular. So I can see that, Johnson returning to that. But I still think he'll become a YouTuber or some sort of shock jock. I really do. I think that's what's in the future for Boris Johnson. Then eventually, a return to politics for him. Now, the other thing, that's Boris Johnson's future. But what about the consequences of this? So, first of all, this is not good if you are Rishi Sunak, because now you have to fight two by-elections, because it's not just Boris that has gone, or at least currently, it's not just Boris that has gone, but also Nadine Dorries. So you now have to fight two by-elections. And by the looks of it, from CCHQ, they have given any candidates that want to stand in those seats until Monday of 5 o'clock to get your application in. So they want these by-elections done as quickly as they can. They do not want these by-elections dragging on. So they want them done as quickly as possible. And we already know the Liberal Democrats are going to go heavily in Shropshire or North Shropshire. We know Labour are probably going to go for Uxbridge because it would be absolute PR gold if they win that Uxbridge seat. And then there is the rumour that there are potentially other Tory MPs who are Boris Johnson allies who also will quit because A, they're not really safe in their seat. They know the polls and they really don't want to be in opposition. So to them, well, if I was going to quit anyway after the loss, why not just quit now and cause absolute acrimony for Rishi Sunak? Because currently he has to do two. But what if all of a sudden it's 4 or maybe 7 or maybe 10 or maybe 12? I don't think it will get higher than that. But imagine Rishi Sunak on Monday morning, if there is a mass resignation of Tory MPs in support of Boris Johnson, then decide we're resigning as well. And you now have to fight 12 by-elections. I don't think it'll be any more than that. Very surprised if it even gets that high, to be honest. But it wouldn't surprise me if a couple more MPs also decide, well, I'm going to resign anyway because, well, we know we're potentially going to end up in opposition. I might as well get out while the getting's good. And Boris has opened the perfect avenue for you to have a good escape. It's very possible. It's very possible that could happen. I think the ideal date is Monday. If it doesn't happen on Monday, which is when it can have the biggest full effect, well, then it will only be Boris and of course Nads. But either way, those will be probably two very, very embarrassing defeats for Rishi Sunak. And like I say, if there's more than that, and there's that big resignation, well, at what point does Sunak just go, well, we might as well call a general election? Because there will be calls, if there is that amount, you should have a general election. And will just the momentum of that put Sunak in a place where he doesn't want to have a general election, but just he gets forced where he just has to have one? That could very likely happen, but we'll see how things work out. We'll see what happens when Monday rolls around. But we'll see. But I do not think we've heard the last of Boris Johnson as being in frontline politics. But I highly suspect, coming soon, the YouTube channel of Boris Johnson. Why not? Makes the most perfect sense. Makes absolute perfect sense for Boris Johnson to do that. He gets funded by, again, a big sort of millionaire. There's lots out there who would gladly do that. And, just let all that ad revenue, all that super chat stuff roll in for him. He'd probably do very well at it. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, as always, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and the one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And of course, there is the YouTube thank you button and the Pony Club down below as well. So, as always, we'll see you all next time.